The text came through at 2:47 a.m. I was in a dead sleep, the kind of deep, dreamless rest you only get after a long, exhausting week. I remember my phone buzzing on the nightstand, and I just ignored it. It wasn't the first time Linda had texted in the middle of the night. She was always on some work trip, staying late to network with her colleagues. When the second text came, a minute later, it was followed by a third, then a fourth. The phone was vibrating so hard it was dancing across the wood. A cold dread, the kind that hits you right in the gut, started to spread. Linda was supposed to be in Vegas for a conference. She'd been gone for 3 days, and our last conversation had been a brief, stilted call where she sounded distracted and annoyed. I finally reached over, squinting at the bright screen. And that's when I saw it. Her first text said, asterisk, I'm sorry, I have something to tell you. Asterisk, the second, asterisk, I've married William. Asterisk, William, her coworker, a guy I'd met maybe twice at company picnics. A guy she'd told me was just a friend. A guy she'd spent the last 8 months with, in ways I was only just beginning to imagine. The third and fourth texts were just pictures. Her and William standing in front of a tacky Vegas chapel, smiling so wide they looked like they'd won the lottery. My heart didn't just break, it shattered. It felt like my entire world, the one I had built so carefully, was crumbling into dust around me. The woman I had loved, the woman I had promised to spend my life with, had just erased me, replaced me, all with a few taps on a screen. My mind started to race. This wasn't just a cheating scandal. This was a complete betrayal on a level I hadn't even known existed. The fact that she was gloating about it, sending pictures as if she expected me to congratulate her, made my blood run cold. She didn't have the decency to even tell me in person or over the phone. Just a few words, sent from a city of sin, like she was ordering a pizza. But then, a strange calm washed over me. It was like I was watching a movie of my life, and I was suddenly the director. I had to take control of the narrative. I wasn't going to let Linda be the hero of her own story. Not on my watch. I sat up, swung my legs out of bed, and walked over to my desk. My hands were shaking, but my mind was laser-focused. The first thing I did was open my banking app. Linda and I had a joint account, and I had access to all our credit cards. I went through and blocked every single one of them. She was in Vegas, probably planning on a long honeymoon with her new husband, and she was going to have to pay for it herself. The next thing I did was get the spare key to our house that she kept on her keychain. I drove to the local locksmith, who, thankfully, was open 24 hours for emergencies. I explained the situation to him in a cold, detached voice. He gave me a knowing look and got to work. I had the locks changed on every door in the garage within the hour. I went back home, put the new keys in my pocket, and sat on the couch in the living room. It was now around 4 a.m. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting a soft, orange light through the blinds. I looked around the house that Linda and I had made a home. The photos on the wall, the memories we had shared, they all felt like a lie. A sick, twisted joke. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt numb. But that numbness was a shield, and behind that shield, a plan was forming. I was going to show Linda what it meant to leave a man who had built a life for them both. I was going to show her what it meant to walk away from everything we had worked for. She wanted a new life? Fine. She was going to get one, and it was going to be a lot harder than she ever imagined. I texted my lawyer, a good friend named David who I trusted implicitly. I just sent him a simple message. Asterisk, I need to talk to you first thing this morning. It's about Linda. It's bad. Asterisk. He responded almost immediately. Asterisk. I'm on it. Give me a call at 9 a.m. Asterisk. The next few hours were a blur. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, waiting for the sun to come up, waiting for the new day to begin. The day my old life died and a new one was born. The day I became a single man again, a man who had been completely and utterly betrayed, but also a man who was ready for a fight. Just before 9 a.m., my phone rang. It wasn't David. It was a police officer. Sir, we have a report of a domestic disturbance at your address. A woman named Linda has reported that she has been locked out of her home and her credit cards have been blocked. Do you have anything to say about this? My voice was steady as I responded. "Officer, I have a text from my wife, Linda, that she is in Vegas, and she has married her coworker, William. I'm not married to her anymore. The house and the credit cards are mine. I can provide the evidence you need." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the gears turning in the officer's head. He knew this wasn't a simple domestic dispute. This was something else entirely. "All right, sir," he said finally. "Stay put. I'm going to have to come over and take a look at the evidence. And I'm going to need you to explain why you didn't just divorce her." I hung up the phone and just sighed. This was it. The first shot had been fired. And Linda, in her desperation, had already put a target on her own back. She was so used to getting her way, to manipulating people, that she hadn't even considered the consequences. She had thought that by going to the police, she could get back into the house and force me to give her access to our money. But she had made a crucial mistake. She had underestimated me. She had assumed that I would be a victim. And for the first time in a very long time, I was going to prove her wrong. I was going to be a survivor. And I was going to make sure that she paid for every single lie, every single deception, every single moment of betrayal. The doorbell rang. It was the police. The game was officially on. The officers, two of them, a man and a woman, came inside. They were professional, but you could tell they'd already heard a bunch of stories like this. The male officer, who introduced himself as Officer Reynolds, started with the usual calm, serious tone. "Sir, can you explain what happened here? Mrs. Smith is claiming you've locked her out and have taken her cards. Is there a dispute?" I just handed them my phone, open to the texts. I didn't say a word. I just let them read. Their expressions changed as they scrolled through the messages, from mild concern to outright something. Disbelief? Sympathy? The female officer, Officer Davis, winced when she saw the pictures of Linda and William in front of the chapel. "Mr. Smith," Reynolds said, handing my phone back to me, his voice a little softer now. "Is this a recent development?" 2:47 a.m., I said, my voice as flat as a board. That's when I got the texts. "She's in Vegas. My money is now mine. My house is now my house. I don't want her in it, and I don't want her to have access to my finances. I'm starting a new life." She already did. Officer Davis looked around the living room, at the wedding pictures on the mantelpiece, at the 2 coffee mugs with Mr. Right and Mrs. Always Right written on them that we'd gotten as a joke on our last anniversary. It was all a complete lie. She looked at me, and I think she saw it in my eyes, the absolute devastation, the sheer shock of it all. "She claims the house is jointly owned," Reynolds said. "Is that true?" "On paper, yes," I said. "But I'm the only one who has ever paid the mortgage. Every single payment came from my salary. She hasn't had a job in 3 years. She's a stay-at-home influencer, which means she just takes pictures of herself and posts them on Instagram." I got a slight chuckle from Officer Davis, but she quickly covered it up. She knew this was serious. This was a real person, a real life, being ripped apart. Reynolds nodded slowly. "All right. Well, we'll file a report. We can't force you to let her back in, especially with this evidence. But I have to warn you, she's going to come back, and she's not going to be happy. I'm counting on it," I said. The next few hours were spent on the phone with David, my lawyer. He was just as shocked as the police had been. We went over everything. The joint account, the mortgage payments, the cars we owned, the little bit of savings we had. He gave me a simple piece of advice. Don't talk to her. Don't text her. Don't answer any calls. Let me handle it. You need to focus on yourself right now. And if she shows up, don't let her in. Call me and call the police. I took his advice to heart. The thought of hearing her voice, of hearing the lies, the excuses, the fake apologies, it was too much. I wasn't ready to face her. I wasn't sure I ever would be. The quiet, the absolute silence in the house was deafening. It was the kind of quiet that follows a storm, where you're just left with the wreckage. I spent the entire day just existing. I watched the news, I scrolled through my phone, I tried to read a book, but the words just swam on the page. My mind kept replaying the texts, the pictures, the happy faces of a woman who had once been my wife and her new husband, a guy I'd always thought was kind of a tool. Around 5 p.m., the doorbell rang. I didn't answer it. I looked through the peephole and saw a small army assembled on my front lawn. Linda was there with her parents and William. They were all standing on my lawn, looking furious. Linda was holding a duffel bag, as if she expected me to just let her in and give her everything she wanted. I just watched them through the peephole. Linda's mom was gesturing wildly, pointing at the door, yelling at Linda. Her dad, a quiet, serious man, just stood there with his arms crossed, looking more embarrassed than anything. And William just stood there, his hands in his pockets, a smirk on his face. He looked like he'd just won a prize. And in a way, he had. He had won my wife. I felt a surge of rage, so hot and so sudden it almost knocked me off my feet. I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want to see their faces. I just wanted them to leave. So I did the only thing I could think of. I picked up my phone, called David, and put him on speaker. David, they're here. Linda, her parents, and William. I told you not to answer the door, he said, his voice tense. I didn't. I'm just letting you know. He was silent for a second, then said, Okay, let me give you some advice. You have a right to your property. If they try to force their way in, call the police immediately. But you also have to give her a chance to get her stuff. We can't just keep it forever. Let's not give her any more ammunition. I hung up, took a deep breath, and opened the door just a crack. Linda, I said, my voice low and steady. You have 1 hour to get your stuff. After that, I'm calling the police. I've already filed a report. The look on her face was priceless. It was a mix of shock, rage, and a hint of something else, fear. She had expected me to be a broken mess, begging her to stay. She had expected me to fall apart. But I wasn't. I was standing tall, and I was in control. You have a restraining order against me, she shrieked, her voice high and shrill. No, Linda, I said, and a cruel, cold smile played on my lips. But if you don't leave in 1 hour, I'm going to make sure you get one. And you know what else? I'm also going to send a certified letter to your employer's HR department, detailing your actions. I wonder how they'll feel about a manager who marries a subordinate and then lies about it to the police. That was the trump card, the ultimate weapon. She knew it, and so did William. Their faces went from shocked and angry to a pale, sickly white. You wouldn't, Linda's mom said, her voice shaking. Try me, I said, and closed the door. The next hour was a whirlwind. I could hear them outside, arguing. Linda was screaming, her mom was crying, and William was trying to calm them all down. I just sat on the couch, drinking a glass of water, and watched the chaos unfold. When the hour was up, they were gone. All that was left was a silence that was just as deafening as before. But this time, it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of a battle won. And I was just getting started. Things moved fast after that. Linda's family had to take all her stuff. It was honestly kind of pathetic. They showed up in 2 beat-up U-Haul trucks, and it took them the better part of the day to clear out her side of the house. I just stood there, watching as they boxed up everything from her clothes to the stupid, expensive art she'd bought with our joint money. They didn't say a word to me. Her dad just kept his eyes on the floor, and her mom just kept muttering under her breath. Linda herself was a ghost, a blur of motion, avoiding my gaze completely. The only one who dared to say anything was William. As they were leaving, he walked over to me, a smug smile on his face. You're really taking this well, he said, for a guy who just lost his wife. I didn't even flinch. I didn't lose her, I said. I sold her for a profit. Enjoy the rest of the garbage. The look on his face when I said that it was worth every single moment of pain. His smugness disappeared, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. He didn't know what to say. He just stood there, his mouth agape, and I just closed the door on him. That was the last I ever saw of him in person. A few days later, the legal letters started to arrive. Linda, or rather, Linda's lawyer, was trying to annul our marriage. The grounds? She claimed she was manipulated into marrying William. She claimed she was under duress, and that it was all a terrible, terrible mistake. She even tried to claim that the stress of our failing marriage had caused a temporary lapse in her judgment. It was a complete farce, a desperate last-ditch effort to save face and get back some of what she'd lost. I just laughed. My lawyer, David, was furious. She's trying to play the victim, he said, his voice dripping with venom. After all of this, she's still trying to spin a narrative where she's the hero and you're the villain. It's disgusting. He didn't just laugh. He got to work. He filed a motion for a quick, no-fault divorce. and he included all the evidence we had. The text messages, the pictures, the police report, everything. And then he added the kicker. He found a bunch of her old texts where she had been complaining about William. Texts where she'd called him creepy and a weirdo. He even found some where she'd mocked his lack of ambition. We also had a bunch of her texts to her friend, bragging about how she was going to live her best life with William and all his money. It was all premeditated. It was all a calculated betrayal. The divorce hearing was a joke. Linda showed up looking tired and defeated, her eyes red from crying. Her lawyer tried to argue her case, tried to paint me as some kind of controlling, abusive husband who had driven his wife into the arms of another man. He claimed that I had gaslit her into a divorce, and that she was a fragile, emotionally vulnerable woman who just wanted her life back. But David, my lawyer, wasn't having it. He just sat there, a calm, patient smile on his face, waiting for his turn. And when it came, he went for the jugular. "Your Honor," he said in a quiet, controlled voice. The plaintiff claims she was under duress. She claims she was manipulated. She claims she was emotionally vulnerable. And yet, here we have texts from her sent to her friends where she brags about how she is going to live her best life with her new husband. Here we have a police report filed by her where she tries to claim a house she has never paid for as hers. And here we have pictures sent by her to my client, gloating about her new marriage. He paused, letting the words sink in. Linda's face, which had been pale, was now a deep, angry red. Her lawyer was sweating. "Your Honor," David continued, "this is not a case of a vulnerable woman being manipulated. This is a case of a woman who tried to have her cake and eat it too. She wanted to leave her husband, but she didn't want to face the consequences. She wanted to marry a man with more money, but she didn't want to lose the financial security she had with her current husband. She wanted to be a victim, but the evidence shows she was a predator." The judge didn't even need to hear anymore. He looked at Linda, who was now openly sobbing, and just shook his head. "Ms. Smith," he said, his voice full of a kind of weary disappointment, "the evidence presented is overwhelming. Your actions were premeditated, and your claims are without merit. Divorce is granted, and as you have a new husband who is financially stable, I am ruling that Mr. Smith is not required to pay any alimony. The house, all the assets, and all the savings are his. You are entitled to the personal belongings you have already removed from the property. This case is closed." Linda screamed. It wasn't a cry of pain. It was a scream of pure, unadulterated rage. She looked at me, her eyes full of a hatred so deep it made me shiver. She had lost. She had lost everything, and she had no one to blame but herself. The judge had to order a bailiff to escort her out of the courtroom. As they were leading her away, she kept screaming my name. "You did this to me. You ruined my life." But she was wrong. She had ruined her own life, and I was just the one who had finally given her the mirror to see it. The judge's gavel hit the desk with a finality that echoed through the courtroom, and just like that, it was over. I had won. Not that it felt like a victory, really. It felt more like a draw after a long, brutal war. I had my house. I had my money. But I had lost years of my life to a woman who had never really loved me, who had only ever seen me as a meal ticket. I walked out of that courtroom a free man, but also a broken one. Linda, on the other hand, well, she didn't take it so well. After she was escorted out, her public relations campaign kicked into high gear. She started a new Instagram account, and she went on a full-blown social media rant, painting me as a monster. She claimed I was emotionally abusive, controlling, and that I had ruined her life. She posted pictures of herself crying, and she even got William to post a few pictures of them together with captions like, "True love triumphs over evil." It was disgusting. It was a complete and utter lie. But this time I was ready. David, my lawyer, had advised me to just ignore it. "Let her spin her lies," he said. "People who know you know the truth. And the people who don't, well, they'll figure it out soon enough." But I couldn't. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had let her get away with so much already. I had to do something. So I did. I made a new Instagram account, one I had never used before. I didn't post any pictures of myself. I just posted a picture of the 2:47 a.m. text message she had sent me, and a picture of the divorce papers, with the judge's ruling highlighted. I didn't say a word. I just let the evidence speak for itself. The internet, as it always does, went wild. Her followers, the people she had been spinning her lies to for so long, started turning on her. They started asking her questions. Is this real? Did you really do this? Why did you lie to us? Her carefully constructed narrative, the one she had spent so long building, started to fall apart. People started to realize that she wasn't the victim she claimed to be. She was the villain. The final blow came when someone found a bunch of her old tweets from before she had even met William, where she had talked about how she wanted to find a rich guy to marry so she wouldn't have to work anymore. It was all there in black and white. Her entire life, her entire persona, was a lie, and the internet, in its infinite wisdom, had exposed it for the world to see. I closed my new account and deleted it. I didn't need to see any more of it. I had gotten my revenge, not with words or with violence, but with the cold, hard truth. And it was enough. The next few months were a blur. I sold the house. It was just too full of ghosts, too full of memories of a life that had never really existed. The money from the sale, combined with the money I'd saved, was enough to buy a new house, a fresh start, in a different part of the city. I found a new place, a smaller, cozier place that was all mine. No more joint accounts. No more shared mortgages. No more lies. I also started dating again. And this time, I was a lot smarter. I met a woman named Sarah, a nurse who was kind, funny, and most importantly, honest. She wasn't interested in my money. She was interested in me. We took things slow, and we built a real, honest connection. She knew about Linda. I told her everything. She didn't judge me. She just listened. And that was all I needed. I still get updates about Linda from time to time. She lost her job after the HR department got wind of the whole scandal. William, her new husband, left her a few months later, taking her car and everything else with him. She's now living in a small apartment, working a dead-end job, and she's a ghost on the internet. Her social media accounts are gone. Her friends have abandoned her, and she's all alone. I don't hate her anymore. I don't feel anger or rage or even sadness. I just feel pity. She had everything. A good life, a husband who loved her, a beautiful home. And she threw it all away for a man she didn't even like, for a life that was built on a lie. She wanted more, but she ended up with less. And that, I think, is the most perfect punishment of all. I'm sitting on my new couch in my new house with a new woman who loves me for who I am. And for the first time in a very long time, I feel happy. I feel at peace. I learned a hard lesson, a very expensive lesson, but I survived, and I'm stronger because of it. I'm a better man, and that, I think, is the true victory